All right, welcome back to the Ump and the Chump show here. Today we're going to go over the NFC South. We're going to start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This team is ultimately running it back, pretty much the same squad this year. They added Bucky Irving in the draft, so another weapon on that offense. But the big
Pure
change
speed.
there, yep, pure speed, strong, big back, could be a third, three down back. But the big change is on the coaching side of things. They bring in Liam Cohen. They lose Dave Canales, so Cohen comes in a bit unproven, big shoes to fill in Canales, and we'll see how Baker handles that. But Canales, his track record, very small sample size here, but he was with the Rams for 3 years, assistant QB coach there, went to Kentucky, served as the OC and QB coach there, back to the Rams in 2022, back to Kentucky in 23 as the OC, and now he's coming back to the NFL with the Buccaneers. So we'll see what kind of impact that has on Baker, on the rest of this offense, but pretty much the same cast there.
That's a lot of movement for him, and he's originally from down the road in Warwick, Rhode Island.
That's right, Liam Cohen.
Yes.
Rhode Island's finest.
Now, I know that you said you think they're going to run the ball a lot more. They're still going to have to throw the ball, right?
Yep.
And what I'm seeing is Mike Evans. Mike Evans at negative 155 for 1,000 yards this year. It almost seems like a no-brainer. And if you wanted to pair that, parlay that with Marvin Harrison Jr., who is also a no-brainer, we're going to talk about him later. Mm-hmm. But he's at negative 125 right now for 1,000 yards. Put those two together for positive 196. Turns $50 to $150.
I love it. I'm big on Evans this year. I think he's going to have another strong season. He's had something crazy like 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons.
Right.
So he is Mr. Consistency. He does get dinged up. He has that occasional hamstring injury throughout the season. But the running back room, I'm staying away from that right now. I'm high on Bucky Irving, but Rachaad White is still the starter. They haven't said anything over there in Tampa to lead us to believe otherwise. So for right now, we need to operate as though he's the starter. He was inefficient. He looked slow. He wasn't a great runner. He was a good pass catcher last year by volume alone. I think he sees a little less of that. I think Bucky Irving gets a little bit more. We've seen Bucky in the preseason. He looks fast. He looks elusive.
You said he passes the smell test, right?
Yeah,
Or the
smell
eye test?
and eye test,
Okay.
both. He is a beast, and I think he's a 3-down back from Oregon, like you said. To me, I'm targeting Bucky Irving late in drafts. Okay. He's going around 14 or 15 right now. He's basically
that's value. That's real value.
Season long redraft leagues. So that's to me that's the one.
Do you think
guy
they're going to win
offense.
8? Do you think they're going to win 8 games? I guess would be my
I
question.
don't. I don't think they're going to be a good overall team. I think for fantasy they're going to provide a little bit of value for us, but I'm staying away from them as far as their wins.
So if you don't think they're going to make 8, that means they'll be less than 7.5. Their under is at plus 125. So that's if you don't believe in the Bucs. I have the Bucs going to the playoffs.
That's tempting.
I do have the Bucs going to the playoffs because the division's weak.
Yeah.
It is. It's the Falcons are unproven.
Well, you nailed it. It's the weak division, right? It's up for grabs. I mean, aside from
7
the Falcons,
and 10 can make it into the division.
Right.
I almost said 7 and 9, but the new
the extra game.
Yes.
Yeah, and so third string running back over there, Sean Tucker. We don't need to worry about him for fantasy purposes right now. But obviously, if Rachaad White has an injury, it's not a given that that the backup job is going to Bucky Irving. It could very well be Sean Tucker, who looked okay in stints last year. And then on the receiver side of things, Mike Evans, we both like.
Right.
I'm not going to target him in drafts, but if he falls to me in the 3rd or 4th round, maybe. Chris Godwin, staying far away from him. He hasn't looked the same since he came back from the ACL injury that he had a couple of years ago. So for me, I'm out on this offense. I'm going to take a late dart throw on Bucky Irving and hope that something happens, or maybe he gets on the field just due to inefficiency from Rachaad White. And then the tight end over there, Cade Otton. Keep your eye on him. I think we're going to see a little bit more volume for Cade this year. But he's one of those guys, even with the high volume, he has never produced. So it doesn't really add up, but
that's why, as a gambler, I always like to watch first, right? Like watch that first game, second game, see how they play together, and then really make moves after that. Like I don't week 1, I won't go crazy on props but once I start seeing and how they play and how they mesh, like for example, the Ravens, I can't wait for the first game. I can't wait to watch Lamar and Derrick Henry play.
Yes, it's a special combo. And I mentioned before, Rachaad White looked very inefficient last year.
Yeah,
he rushed for 990 yards, but with 3.6 yards per carry. So scary inefficiency numbers there. The entire Bucs offense was inefficient running the ball. That's why they went out and they brought in Bucky Irving through the draft. No running back on that team was over 4 yards per carry last year. So again, the job is wide open. They obviously aren't satisfied with the running back room as it was last year. Bucky Irving, to me, is screaming value. And let's jump ahead to the Atlanta Falcons. Sure. This is the, in my opinion, most electric team in the division. There's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of unknowns, right? You bring in your new quarterback. Well, they found their quarterback.
New but old.
Yeah,
new.
Who is it? Is it Kirk Cousins or is it their first round draft pick, Michael Penix? The veteran free agent Kirk Cousins has fared well in the fantasy world. He hasn't been that great of a real life quarterback. His teams never go that far in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens there. I'm really intrigued by some of these fantasy pieces, and I know you're high on Kyle Pitts.
Well, I'm big on Kyle Pitts. Not everybody is. I know you're not big on Kyle Pitts, but we'll get to that in a second. Mm-hmm. Kyle Pitts, do you think he's going to get 750 yards this year?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. It seems like a no-brainer. Negative 110. Yeah. Put it in. Go run. Don't put all your money on it. I will never say that.
The counter to that, well, there's a couple counters. You have an aging quarterback coming off the Achilles injury. How is he going to look coming back from that?
But then you got Penix going. Even if Kirk Cousins goes down, you still got Penix that threw the ball deep in college. He was not afraid to let the ball go down.
That's a great point.
A lot of colleges don't throw the ball downfield at all. Yeah. And he was like, boop, let it fly.
That's a great point because this might be one of those few teams in the NFL that doesn't skip a beat if their starter goes down.
Right. It might be better.
They may be even more of an air raid offense.
I was telling you right before we started recording, how it reminds me of when Robert Griffin III was drafted and Kirk Cousins was right behind him. So he knows that pressure. He was the one pressuring Robert Griffin III, and then now he's going to have that pressure behind him. It might it might catapult him, even in his late 30s.
And I've heard a few people say this. I am starting to become a believer of this rumor. Don't be surprised if Kirk Cousins is on a different team in 2025. If things don't play out the way we think, if he gets injured and Penix looks good,
rookie quarterback,
don't be surprised if Cousins is elsewhere next year. And I got to imagine, I know Kirk would never say this publicly, but he probably was rubbed the wrong way when they drafted a quarterback in the first round this year.
That's why I mentioned him. That's exactly because he knows what that feeling is. Yeah. Yeah. That was the chatter. That was the chatter after like right away. It was
right. And he's a professional. He'll never say anything.
Correct. He might be a great. It'd be nice to talk to him.
Right. It doesn't matter what your career is. If someone brings in a hot shot below you in the same role, you're gonna feel the heat. So let's see how he reacts. He's a professional. He'll probably handle it well. But two big coaching changes over there. Head coach Raheem Morris, offensive coordinator Zach Robinson, both come in. Since 2019, Robinson has held multiple roles under the Rams head coach Sean McVay, and that's really important from an offensive standpoint. The Falcons finished bottom 5 in pass rate each of the past 2 seasons, and the Rams rank around middle of the pack with McVay. Cousins instantly gives them a shot to roll out the McVay staple, 11 personnel, and the Rams used 3 wide receiver sets on 90% of their plays last year.
That's why you said you didn't
well ahead of the league average, which was 60%, right? So Robinson's also coming from an offense that heavily utilized the pre-snap motion. Don't be surprised if we see a lot of these guys, your guy, Kyle Pitts specifically, but also Mooney and Drake London in that pre-snap motion. So love this offense as a whole. Very high on Bijan. This is going to surprise people.
I mean, it's negative 110 for 1,000 yards. Yeah. It's another one that you can parlay up to 6 running backs, six running backs at 1,000 yards. I have them up on my TikTok on the Chump Fantasy Sports.
Nice. Yeah. For me, on the fantasy side of things, I would take Bijan number 1 overall. A lot of people have CMC there.
Right.
A lot of people don't even have Bijan in the top 3. I saw Breece Hall going above him, obviously CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase are some of the top names right now. But for me, Bijan, the upside, you know that Kirk Cousins is going to dump the ball off. We saw what Bijan looked like at the end of last season when they gave him more volume. To me, he should be the first running back and first player in general off the board in fantasy land. The upside is just way too high. And for me, you have to have an argument against CMC if you're going to have someone else in that number 1 slot. The argument there is He's an aging running back. We've seen him have injuries before.
Right.
We haven't seen, serious injuries to Bijan yet. So for me, high on Bijan, high on Drake London, high on Darnell Mooney. Kyle Pitts, I'm lukewarm, but you're starting to sell me on him. One thing about Bijan, new coaching staff, like I said, it's going to be Rams-esque, offense coming in here. PFF ranked their O-line number 6 last year. He has a viable QB, can't load the boxes on Kirk anymore, and he only earned a 52% opportunity share last year and still had a top 10 finish with Algier handling a lot of that.
Kirk Cousins does worry me. Again,
Yeah.
there's something about how Justin Jefferson can bring the best out of a quarterback, right? Like we'll see what Kirk Cousins can do with this kind of he's got Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Bijan Robinson. He's got enough. Can they do it though?
Yeah.
Do you think now my question is for you is 9.5 wins?
Yeah, I would take the over on that, and I would take the over even if it was 10.5. I think this team wins 11 games.
Now I don't know how much you gamble, but you can bump it up. I did that for the Patriots.
Yeah,
the Patriots were at 4.5. I'm like, I think they can win at least 5 or 6. So I bumped it up for it to increase the odds. Exactly.
Yeah, I would do that with this team.
Okay.
If you look at their schedule, I think it's their last. Basically, the entire second half of the season is a cakewalk. But their last 6 games, they played the Panthers, they played the Giants, they play the division teams. It's a very weak division. The Saints they play twice. So
that's true. That's very
for me.
Now you're selling me.
Yeah, for me, I'm all in on the Falcons.
Even if Cousins goes down, they still have a great shot of winning.
Yeah, and they just got Judon from the Patriots, right?
That's right. That's right. For a third-round pick, I think it was.
Yeah, and they've signed a couple of weapons on defense. So this is a well-rounded team with a good offense, a good head coach, a good offensive coordinator coming in. I think we can trust them. And to me, I want at least one piece of this offense in fantasy. At least
negative 135 for over 9.5. I will post.
That's a slam dunk.
Yeah, I will post the teaser if you can get higher.
Nice. So next up for us, the Carolina Panthers, going from a team with a lot of intrigue, a lot of upside, to a team with a little less of both, maybe a lot less. Basically for them, their theme is to make Bryce Young great again. He's, they're surrounding him with more talent this year, a better line, and some competent coaching. So that's a start. And important to note that the rookie running back, Jonathan Brooks, won't be ready for the start of the season. Okay. So playing accordingly in drafts, that's, obviously a little bit more is going to fall on Bryce Young because of that. But the big thing for me, new head coach. They bring in Dave Canales. Canales resurrected Baker Mayfield's career in Tampa. Now gets a shot to do it with Bryce Young. Keep in mind, they are going to be more run-heavy in Carolina, and the offensive coordinator, Brad Idzik, who is the former Tampa Bay wide receivers coach, is now the youngest offensive coordinator in the league. So he has a lot to learn, a bit unproven. He won't call plays, but he brings familiarity with Canales, having worked together for 5 seasons in Tampa.
The trend has been younger offensive coordinators, and
Yep.
I don't know if they all played Madden, but that's what I see when I'm watching professional football these days. I see the motion.
Doesn't hurt.
It transfers.
Yeah.
The skills transferred. The Mike McDaniels. I do believe in Bryce Young. I think that he did great in college. He had a horrible first year. I mean, it was really nothing to talk about for last year. That being said, you can't do any worse, right? Do you think he's going to get 4,000 yards?
No.
No. You don't.
No, I see an uptick. I see serious improvement with this offense, specifically with Bryce Young. But I would take the under on that. Right. The new coaching staff can only carry so much of the load. He has some weapons, but Deontay Johnson is known for dropping passes. When you give a quarterback who's struggling with confidence, a wide receiver that is already injured with a groin strain and drops passes, to me, Xavier Legette, the rookie from South Carolina, is the wide receiver to know and consider in drafts later on. Deontay Johnson could very well lead this team in targets. But Adam Thielen is still there. You have other weapons. There's an argument to be made for both. I'm not against Deontay Johnson. I would just be risk averse here.
Right. I would not put my money on someone that perpetually drops ball and perpetually ges injured.
Yep.
For a speed guy losing the groin for at least a month.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, we just talked about a team in the Atlanta Falcons who have a backup quarterback that can certainly hold his own.
The Red Rifle.
Andy Dalton is in Carolina, the Red Rifle. So Bryce Young has a solid backup, a veteran
Tutorship,
who,
too.
a veteran that can mentor him, give him some tips. We saw him learn last year as Dalton went to Adam Thielen a little bit more in relief, and then we saw it when Bryce Young got back in there, started to mimic that and do the same.
It takes time.
Yeah.
There are 300-pound men that are running at full speed trying to kill you. Some 350 Jordan Davis.
Yeah. So again, for me, in on this offense to a degree. If these guys fall to me later in the draft, I'm interested. The one guy in that running back room, Jonathan Brooks, he's not going to be healthy to start the season.
What's
may
wrong with him?
ACL. So he tore his ACL in college.
Okay.
They knew that when they drafted him. It seems like the recovery time is a little bit slower than they anticipated, but there's still a chance he's ready by week 2, 3, or 4. For me, he's going in rounds 8 or 9 at this point in redraft. I'm fine taking him, especially if you have an IR spot. You can plug him in there, save him. He's going to get a ton of work when he finally is healthy and cleared to play. The other running backs in that room, Chuba Hubbard, who did look okay last year, Miles Sanders, who did not look okay, Mike Boone, we've seen glimpses of him in Minnesota. He's looked okay, but nothing that really scares you from a volume standpoint. So I think when Jonathan Brooks is healthy, but when he's healthy and he comes in, they're going to give him all the work he can handle. And with ACL injuries, we see with running backs all the time, they come back and there's not really this slow ramp-up period. When they're good to go and they're cleared, they are good to go and they're full contact. So
it's something I will look for during the season. Right now, I can't put any kind of money on them. But
tough to do futures bets on a
right. Even Bryce Young.
Suit up.
Bryce Young. I can't do it.
Yeah,
I just can't do it.
Yeah, and the wide receiver room is interesting. They have a lot of guys there. They don't really have a number one. I guess Deontay Johnson is technically the number one.
He dropped a lot of balls.
He's a great route runner.
So fast.
Target machine, fast, quick. He's explosive, but he drops a lot of balls, a bit of a head case. And he got in trouble in Pittsburgh for not blocking. So I don't like taking guys that don't have that extra effort, especially on a team.
That doesn't fly in Pittsburgh.
It doesn't fly in Pittsburgh.
Hines Ward was.
It does fly in Carolina, so maybe he does get away with it there. But for me, that's already a bit of a fractured locker room, and you're bringing in a guy who has issues.
I mean, it's a diva position.
We'll see. I'm a huge fan of Xavier Legette.
5.5 is the total. Sorry to cut you off.
On Deontay?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. On the total. Team wins.
Oh, team wins. Gotcha. Yeah. I'm taking the under. I think this team has 3, maybe 4 wins this year.
Okay. That's pretty piss poor.
Yeah, they're going to be bad.
Under,
like I said,
negative 105.
They were horrendous last year. The only way to go is up, so I think they do improve, but even improving on last year's performance is not going to amount to any wins or serious wins for me. Deontay Johnson's my player spotlight, even with all the negative stuff I'm saying about him, simply because he has a 169 target season on his resume, posted career highs in yards per route run last year, and with a PFF receiving grade of 79.1, which is extremely high. He goes from competing with George Pickens for targets to competing with a 34-year-old Adam Thielen. So for me, playing with a better quarterback in 2024, better offense, likely.
Where you can roll the safety over. We've talked about that before in the past.
Yep.
Where that
double
good
teams.
Yes, exactly.
Is he good enough to warrant that? Is my question. If I'm a defensive coordinator,
yes, he's fast enough.
Yeah,
he's fast enough.
Yeah,
because he'll get by.
So,
if you're running man, there are run cornerbacks that can do it.
Yeah. So if that is the case, then Adam Thielen is going to eat in the slot.
Right. So there you go.
So that could be your pivot. And speaking of pivoting, let's pivot to the New Orleans Saints,
nice
who are
segue.
running it back with pretty much the same squad.
Saints.
We talked about them earlier, off air here, but they really didn't change much. They bring back the same squad, lose a few defensive players, but they have a new wide zone run scheme with Clint Kubiak. I almost said Gary. Bad fit for an aging running back like Kamara, in my opinion. So let's see how this plays out. And spoiler alert, I want Kendre Miller and Jamal Williams shares this year. I don't love the players, but I like their fit better than Kamara. What do you think?
I could be wrong with this, so please correct me if I'm wrong. But Gary Kubiak did have Terrell Davis as a running back, correct?
Yeah.
Terrell Davis did pretty darn well with that zone, but him and Kamara, I don't want to say they're exactly the same, but he's faster.
Yeah.
He was faster. He was
faster. The question for me with Kamara is, does he still have that juice? Because in just from the eye test last year, he didn't pass it because he wasn't efficient.
Was he healthy?
He wasn't healthy, but no one's healthy, especially late in the season. But he didn't look good even from the jump from early on. So he produced. He had a fine season in fantasy numbers, but he didn't look great. And you have a new offensive coordinator, a new scheme. This scheme, I'm telling you, it fits Jamal Williams beautifully, even though I don't think Jamal Williams has much juice left. So in steps Kendre Miller, top draft pick from last year. He has a little bit more intrigue. I'm more interested in him, but this offense as a whole, I'm out on. Totally out on.
Vegas is with you. If for 1,000 yards, Kamara's at plus 600. That's also why I kind of like it, because I love value.
Yeah, that's pretty low.
He's so fast.
Yeah,
he can easily get 200 every couple of games, and there's your money.
Kamara could easily be one of those guys that you draft in the 3rd, 4th, or 5th round, and you look back and he's top 10, and he should have gone in the 1st round very easily.
Hands between.
What do you want with running backs?
Right.
Guys who catch balls. He catches a ton of balls. Derek Carr sees ghosts in the pocket, and he is terrible under pressure. Dump off passes to the running back alleviates some of that pressure. So I want to talk about the wide receiver group. They have Chris Olave, the top draft pick from Ohio State from last year. A.T. Perry, who I like. They have a few other guys. Rashid Shaheed. I love this dude. He's one of my favorite late round picks this year. Some stats on Shaheed from last season. Number 10 in ADOT, number 15 in deep targets, 17 in yards per target, 15 in yards per reception. But these two are great. 3 top 12 fantasy finishes, 5 top 24 fantasy finishes, and now he's the official Saints wide receiver 2 of the season. There's no doubt about that. There's no one else that's going to compete for that spot. So right now he's going at ADP wide receiver 50. That is insane to me. He should be going closer to wide receiver 30, in my opinion. And, people are going to regret sleeping on him.
Do you think they're going to win 8 games a season?
No, I think the Saints are quietly tanking. I think they're one of those teams that they're doing just enough to make the fan base and other people believe that they want to win. But if you look at their offseason, they didn't do anything. They didn't help Derek Carr at all. And they have a lot of pieces, aging veterans. I could see this team imploding. I could see them winning 2-3 games this year. I want no part of that.
I was super surprised to see that at 7.5, the same as the Bucs.
Way too high.
It's plus 100 for the under for that. So that's
they could get 6 wins in their division easily. It's a very weak division.
That's true.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to beat the Falcons, but they could at home in New Orleans. We've seen Kirk Cousins fold under pressure a little bit.
I remember playing Tecmo Bowl back in the 80s and 90s, and just they were the Aints for a long time, and they had Drew Brees for a few years.
So we'll see. So that puts a bow on the division here. So all done with the NFC South. Next up we have the NFC West. So the San Francisco 49ers, Seahawks, Cardinals, and Rams. Looking forward to that one.
All right.